Morning, folks. So I wanted to start with a bit of a cultural reference. Very mainstream, Gorillaz talk a lot about digital in their music, and one of the titles of the track off their debut album was Tomorrow Comes Today. So the future isn't this thing way off in the distance, the future's literally tomorrow, and I think more and more we're seeing it happen much more immediately. Just have the sound off, please. So the one on the left is Back to the Future 2. Kind of those self-lacing shoes are actually getting produced by Nike next year. So things are actually happening. The one on the other side, Blade Runner, I'm not sure if there's going to be flying cars come 2019, but if you look at those cultural references, things are coming true. Things are becoming very, very real. But the difference between the two is almost the difference between dystopia and utopia. Blade Runner is very much your nightmares, what keeps you up at night. And I think all too often an industry like ours asks our clients, what keeps you up at night? What are you worried about? And we're effectively asking them about their nightmare scenarios. And I think more and more we need to be asking clients and ourselves, well, what do we dream about? What's the more optimistic, the more utopian, more idealistic view of what's going to be happening in the future? And certainly that's very much my perspective as we kind of think about what might happen next. And in the way that I personally dream, like language is a really big thing for me, words and how you use them. So, there's the phrase, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. For me, it's very much loquor ergo cogito ergo sum. I speak, therefore I think, therefore I am, which is kind of scary if you're doing kind of Pecha Kucha, because you don't quite know what you're going to say or what you think until you hear yourself say it. But language is changing dramatically. And what we're already seeing is the fact that there are new words every minute, every day. Like dictionaries are kind of useless when it comes to language. It's actually kind of language as a model for reflecting society. And so our society changes, so language changes with it. And so you get things like spong and chensed and lulzed and whatever else. But I think language is evolving kind of far beyond words. And when you start to think about text speak and emoticons and emoji in particular, kind of the body language of the internet, we're starting to use much more visual ways of communicating. And it isn't just about words anymore. It's about symbols and patterns and codes and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And look, this goes to the max, when people start translating, so to speak, Moby Dick. And so you get emoji dick, which is the whole thing written in emojis, right? So this is like a whole new language. And I think the part that's really interesting is that it's mirroring society. It's mirroring the way in which we connect with one another. And so what I think we're likely to see much more is kind of language changing, being much less about text and letters and being much more about new patterns, codes, symbols, pictures. So the language in 2020 will be unrecognizable. It will mirror society as society evolves, but it won't be what you see in a dictionary today. And I think that is fundamentally important. I think what that also means, and this is a kind of seen in a couple of things that have been around for a little while, is rewriting the classics as texts on the left or as tweets on the other side. And I'm a big fan of the Mark Chapman is now following out John Lennon. I think that's pretty cool. But what you're seeing there is just speed, and everyone's been talking about the pace of life and how things are becoming much more urgent, much more immediate. But this is a really cool app called Spritz that basically allows you to read at 700 words per minute. Now, normally, you and I read at about 250, 300, but this is a piece of technology that will allow you to read at 700 words per minute, and as you can see, we can all do it. But that's basically aided by technology. We can't do it alone as humans. And so what we're seeing is technology actually catching up, or at least kind of enabling us to do things much quicker than we've ever been able to do before. Spotify have just bought Echo Nest. Whereas the previous example was kind of human, this is very much machine. Echo Nest can listen to a song in 2.5 seconds. So the technology is allowing us to do things far, far more quickly than we can ever have imagined. And so when you start to apply that to kind of our industry, think about Twitter and other tech firms, they work on sprints, which are typically a week. So you're working on a week turnaround. In our industry, if you're working on the big idea, it's like a quarterly thing. It's like 3 months. And it's a real marathon. It tends to be a bit of a slog at times. And so that will affect the way in which you work, and that we'll have to do things so much more quickly. Obviously, in the way that machines and man come together, that will have some interesting consequences. At the minute, we're spending a huge amount of time trying to make machines more human. And this is a check-in iPad, self-service at an airport, and we're trying to make it more human, more warm, more natural, more personal, all those sorts of things. But at the same time, we're also making ourselves much more machine-like. So, Google Glass, other wearables, those sorts of things. And so when you start to put that together with Spritz, with Echo Nest, with the speed of life and what technology means, it's like, are we going to become more man or more machine? And actually, when you sit there, the evolution from pen and pencil to tablet to, actually starting to embed some of the same technology in ourselves as humans to make ourselves work and think faster. Data is a big part of machine, and obviously the democratization of data through things like Google Trends means that it's all there for everyone to see and use and think and understand. And I think, Google Trends certainly gets me very excited. But in the way that we then use that, it's becoming much more visible as well. So technology then means that all that data that was once hidden and quite dry and quite boring actually gets surfaced in technology that's in your hand. So you can hook it up to your trainers and your iPhone and whatever else you want to hook it up to. And that data becomes really visible and really meaningful in the way that you use it. But what that also means is that visibility kind of hypes up the transparency. And so you'll get things like wiki chains that's already started, where you can actually have all that data not only become very, very visible, but also give transparency around things like supply chains. And so what that will mean is the rise of, increasing rise of conscious consumption. And I think typically CSR hasn't had a huge amount of impact in Australia in terms of people's choice. But what you'll see is the rise of conscious consumption, and that will change kind of how brands work in the decisions you're making because of that transparency and the ability of technology to make it much more visible and surface it in more meaningful ways that actually then impact on your behaviour. So things are changing, new languages, completely new speed that tech will enable us to amplify, and then new decision-making codes. But ultimately, in the way that man and machine comes together, and this is kind of going back to the start in some respects, Damon Albarn in his new album, you can kind of see the link. There's a line in that, everyday robots just touch thumbs. And I think that will be the thing, kind of in the way in which it impacts us, not only emotionally, but also physically, in the way that the race evolves, adapts, or dies.
26 years ago, a group of dedicated people came together
to make the Australian graphic design industry better.
Since then, we've seen the world change dramatically.
And we've changed too.
We're coming together to form one unified AGDA.
So we can be more helpful,
more relevant, and more fun to be a part of.
We're teaming up with new partners,
near and far,
to bring the best of the world's design to Australia.
And take the best of Australian design to the world.
We're recognising that we're more than a group of graphic designers.
We're a creative community
of writers,
makers,
thinkers,
teachers,
animators,
illustrators,
photographers,
bloggers,
students,
leaders. We code and kern,
make and move,
pitch and sketch, print and publish.
We make it bigger,
bolder,
and more grotesque.
We believe that design can break down barriers,
build stronger communities,
drive business, and change lives.
We're here to show the world what Australian design can do.
We are AGDA.